Today we are talking about embracing life's waves. It seems like we got a lot of waves happening today that people shared. There's waves all over the place, all the time. I mean, it's not very often that there's just total calm. And we started with the meditation we did, and those that might be listening later through a recording, I'll link that meditation because that's the whole imagery that brought me to this point today to speak about this, because I think sometimes we forget just how powerful we are when the drops are together and that you really are that ocean. And the ocean is powerful, but also to recognize that we live in a world that's loud and feelings that are hard and emotionally demanding. And we're absorbing a constant stream of just our personal life and our personal people and what's happening, the alerts and the headlines that are in the news, tragedies around us that are personal and ones that seem far away that hit us in the heart. You know, we're dealing with a multitude of opinions and just life, really. And our human nervous system, I don't know, it's designed to metabolize all of that all at once as fast as we're getting it sometimes. I mean, because it's not just the 6 o'clock news anymore. It's a 24/7 stream of what's going on around us. And then we have our own life and our own people. Psychologists are starting to have a name for this. They call it saturation overload. And there's research that says that this nonstop exposure affects our mood, our sleep, our attention. And then when we do have things that happen in our personal life or people that we care around us, you know, sometimes our systems just fritzes out because it's already on that overload. And then there's this loneliness layer because we all think we're feeling it and that other people aren't affected. And then we feel alone in all of that. So it's not just overwhelmed, it's feeling that we're carrying that overwhelm alone. So, how do we meet all those waves without drowning, knowing that we are the wave, that we don't have to drown in it? We are it and we can move with it. Um, so, you know, um, there's an old saying, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. You know, we can't stop change. We can't stop loss, but we can learn to move with it. And that's where all our practices come in. Things like breathing and attention and awareness and knowing that we have meaning. You know, we practice those things when the ocean's calm. So then when it stirs up, our bodies are able to kick those things in. I know I've noticed the last couple of weeks, I wake up and I start, it's like as soon as I'm awake, I'm in my bed doing breathing exercises. So I'm like, my body's like, oh my goodness, you're on overload. And it automatically moves into what it's been trained to do to manage that overload. So are we doing what we need to do for ourselves, even in the calm times? So when we do get all rustled up, our bodies do what it's been trained to do. You know, and I remembered this week too, because I had a conversation with my son about being really irritable. Now, part of that's the concussion. And when we went to see the specialist, the part of the brain that gets a little, the part of the brain for him that he's working on repairing actually leads to being extra irritable, which is, you know, neat to, not neat. Well, for me, it was a little neat to think about that he wasn't just being a pain in the butt on purpose, that there was an actual biological thing going on. And do we think about that too? That parts of ourselves get so overwhelmed, you know, that the irritability or the whatever is that we beat ourselves up because it comes out is a biological way to safety ourselves. Because if you're irritated outward, no one's going to be screwing with you for a little bit because they don't want that. There's an actual safety mechanism built into us biologically to say when we need space. And I think we forget just how human we are, and to pay attention to our own body signals that way. Shutting down or being numb or needing to stay in bed for a day aren't failures. Sometimes they're protective mechanisms for ourselves and what we need to do for ourselves so that we can be in the wave comfortably. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's wisdom. So we actually got to have a neat conversation after the doctor pointed that out to him, that, it's something to recognize, not something to say, oh, I'm awful for. I know I brought up the book before, but the book Hope for Cynics is amazing for stuff like this. And it is pretty accessible. It's not like a super scientific read where he puts everything in story type format, even though he uses real science to back up what he's saying. And that is that when we move into compassion, even when compassion is unclear, that moves us forward in a way that shows the lighter side or the better side of humanity, and the ethical maturity of humanity. There's some stuff from the book that says, I want to stand for dignity without losing my humanity. I want to protect others without becoming hardened. I want to speak up without turning people into enemies. And throughout that whole book are these ways in which people did it at like little tiny levels, what they thought was tiny that ended up helping so many people. They started off with just like recognizing something that the community needed. And then it turned into kind of a movement, like people, I'll give an example I just saw in the news instead of one from the book. There's a bunch of people that got together some extra money and got some donations and went and got a whole bunch of pet food, because with people being picked up by ICE, those families that have pets, those pets are being left unattended. So it was a need that was saw, and these people, it was just kind of a blurb in passing that I saw this. They're not out for super recognition. They're not out for saying that this is what has to happen or not happen. It was a need that was seen, and they got together enough people and enough funds to be able to approach that need because of what they saw. That's riding the wave or being part of the wave. It's finding what speaks to you and being part of what can be a solution in the moment. So it's not loud. It's not, shouting somebody did something wrong or somebody did something right. It's, I see this need right now. How can I be a part of that if it speaks to me? So again, being in the wave is not about taking sides or anything like that. It's standing up for what we know at this moment is necessary for dignity, for truth, and what's in our talent to do something about. It's a response that restores dignity without creating more harm. So it's moving from a reaction which our bodies are really good at, right? To a conscious response, a conscious response. So again, it's recognizing something clearly that might be causing harm or somebody that's in some kind of distress that we can do something about. So it could be like a healthcare worker pushing for clearer communication and equitable treatment between patients. It could be a community leader asking why resources flow in one direction but not another, and how can we parcel that out a little easier. So it's not about being against anyone. It's not about taking the wave and smashing something out of the way. It's about allowing the wave to be part of the ocean. It's allowing for conversation, like between me and my son when he was being really irritating. It's like pointing it out and then finding out the reasons why. It's saying things like, I want people to be safe. I hear your concern. Can we talk about the intention and not just the impact? We think about waves being powerful. They can like smash up a bunch of houses if they get too big, or flood whole towns. Um, and they can also be just a sense of awe. And for those people that do ride the waves, in me looking for different wave metaphors, and I don't remember his name, but there was a guy that rode this wave, this storm was coming, and they knew these waves were going to be horrendous. And they have a video of this man risking his life to do a world record, but it was amazing. Him flying with the wave and knowing how to maneuver to be part of it instead of getting smashed by it. I think that's really what we're being asked to do when we use that ocean metaphor. To understand how powerful we are, but also know that all those little drops together are all of us, and how to understand that we are all in that together. Because cynicism thrives, if we go back to that book, cynicism thrives on the belief that people are incapable of moving together, are incapable of growth. And what we're asking for is hope, which insists otherwise, that people are capable of moving together and being in growth. So, and this takes courage from all of us. And it's a choice for courage. I don't, I guess it was courage for that guy to ride that wave. But, maybe ours are just speaking up for somebody else. Maybe it's checking in on somebody. Maybe it's choosing different words when we're speaking to each other. Maybe it's just staying really, really present when it's much easier to withdraw into our own selves and our own little lives and being. Because again, tiny little things may seem tiny, but they do reshape what other people think they can do with us. Like those people with the dog food. I saw what was happening. They um went to one of the, was it Costco or something like that? Whatever one of those big stores are. And they just loaded stuff up. But what happened was once other people started to know what they were doing, then there were families that were helping families to distribute what was needed. All these other people started getting involved in, just because two dudes had an idea of some niche that needed filled. And we don't have to be perfect about it. We don't have to have it so planned out that we know that this and this and this will be it. Maybe you'll feel misunderstood in it. Maybe people around you won't understand why you think that particular thing needs done at that particular time, or that particular person needs visited or a phone call made. It doesn't mean you're failing if other people don't understand it. It means you're engaged. And you're engaged in the work of being human. Is to mind yourself in your own spiritual practice, whatever that is. Because again, that's important so that you have things like wisdom and courage to move forward or to ride the wave or be part of the wave. To know that your service in whatever form it is becomes a bridge, whether it's with people or animals or showing up to support somebody else. We build community trust through those tiny little efforts. And your service says, no matter, you matter enough for me to show up, even if we see the world differently. And we all see the world differently. No two people see the world the same. So just showing up at whatever it is that you feel called for says that you matter. The people that you're showing up for matter. And that is huge. That's huge. It's allowing it not always to be the quote right way, because there really isn't a right way. There's your way. And you learn through doing. If we're not doing anything, we're not learning. We're not growing. Sometimes we might offer something that's not needed in that moment, but maybe you've put the idea out there to be incorporated later. Sometimes we need to listen more than act, and that's a form of service as well. So, nothing disqualifies you from being part of whatever it is you want to be part of, because humanity is relationship. It's all relationship. It's relationship. When we talked about this, a couple weeks ago, relationship to the earth, relationship, to each other, to the animals, to everything. We can't get away from relationship. So just a couple things to think about as we wrap this up. Again, it's not about perfection. It's about presence. It's not about agreement. It's aligning in love. And when your belief becomes action, hope becomes visible. When your belief becomes action, any action, hope starts to become visible. And one last quote from Ernest Holmes. He wrote, "Life is a mirror and will reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it." These are from last week. I guess I forgot to put up this week's, but I'll read this week's to you. I am allowed to slow down. My nervous system is learning safety. Hope is something I practice. I stand for dignity without needing an enemy. I honor many paths to the sacred. Small acts of care matter. And I am part of healing. As we move into extinguish the flame that we started with, but we don't extinguish that light of creation that we carry with us. We don't stop the waves. We learn the stance, knees soft, breathing steady, eyes open. Hope is not pretending the ocean is calm. Hope is trusting we can keep learning how to ride it and be it together. If you meet one wave with presence this week, one moment with courage, one person with real attention, the world changes just a little. This is how we heal and move together.